Hello, Lizzie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make julienne. She's this absolutely stunningly beautiful, festive, glamorous, amazing wreath, but it's incredibly easy to make, sensational to look at. It starts off with just a polystyrene ring. I found that to be the best thing to use because you've got the dimension of the ring rather than a flat ring, so consider that. But she's made up of puffy bows. She has bits of foliage in there. We've got the little felt stars as well, just to add some interest. Kind of matches my top. Here we are in the height of summer looking at Christmas things, but actually julienne could easily be all year round. Think about orange and purple for Halloween. Think about pastel colours for spring. Maybe make this in the colours of maybe a wedding that you're going to attend, and to give this to the bride to hang somewhere lovely into the reception area. That would be amazing. All in whites, actually. I've just come to me. All in whites with lace. Oh, beautiful. So this is julienne. She's actually available as a download on my website, lizzycurtis.com. And in a sec, I'm going to show you how to make her. So how do we make julienne? Well, the first thing you need is a polystyrene wreath. All the dimensions of everything that I'm using are in the full pattern instruction, so you'll find it there. And I'm just using some jute ribbon, so it's kind of like a hessian, a burlap. We all have different names for these things, and I'm just using pins to actually hold the end of the ribbon in place. Otherwise it's a bit tricky to start off. And then all you're doing is wrapping around, so you could sort of bundle all this together so it's one long piece, and then just pop it through and just keep turning it and twisting it, and you're covering your entire wreath just so it gives it an attractive base. So you're going to go all the way around until you get to this stage, and this stage is the wreath now fully covered in the burlap. I mean, you could use a fancy ribbon if you wanted to, but I quite like the rustic look. So we'll put that to one side because that's our base actually now done. I'll pop it over there. So to actually make the little puffy bows, it's really simple. You just get a square of fabric. Again, all the instructions are in the pamphlet, so you can just refer to that so you know exactly what the sizes are. And what you're going to be doing is folding that square in half so you have a rectangle, and you're going to start just a little bit below the halfway mark, so about an inch up from the bottom, 2 or 3 inches down from the top. So you're just going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, little reverse stitch there just to secure that, because we're going to turn this through. Like I say, 1/4 inch, and even when we come to the folded edge, surprisingly, we're going to stitch that as well. So you wouldn't automatically think that's what you're going to do, but it does give you a nice crispy edge, and you know I like a nice crispy edge. So all the way down, and again, about just over the inch, but you just need a gap of about 2 inches just to turn through. Gives you a nice finish. Now you need to make 30 of these, so I would do a production run and just keep on going and stitching them together and just make a big chain of them. And when you get to this stage where they all now are off the machine, I know you can't see the stitching, but all you're going to do is snip the corners off just so they're good for turning, nice and neat. Be careful of your stitches near the folded edge. And then you're just going to turn this little puffy bow through. Now this is the time to get your iron out, because it does make a difference if you iron these and get them really neat. And it also helps to actually get the corners nice and rounded. So sorry, nice and square. I was looking for my turning tool and it's not there. I'll just use the blunt end of my scissors. So just push that through. Be careful of those corners because you don't want to split your fabric. If you've made 30 of these, there's no way you want to ruin any of these. And just poke those corners out. Like I say, get your iron and give that a really good press. And that's still not quite out. Let's push that out a bit more. There we go. And once you press that, and I'll just finger press it for now, the 1/4 inch seam allowance where the turning gap is just automatically pops inside, so it makes it really neat and ready now then for stitching at the end. Or you could glue. So with a little bit of stuffing, and you don't really need a huge amount, you're just going to stuff these little bows and pop the stuffing right into the corners. You could use your fingers, you might have a stuffing tool of some sort. I tend to use my hemostats with these. So just stuff them so they're puffy. It's difficult to explain, but they want a little bit of volume, so don't be too mean with your toy stuffing. Get them nice and puffy. And then when we've got to the stage where we're happy, so that's not bad, let's get rid of that little bit of stuffing there. Again, you're going to pull those edges together and you've got then that seam ready to stitch. Now you could, if you wanted to, glue these together. Don't forget you have got a lot to do, but all you need to do is just a little slip stitch, really, nothing fancy. Don't forget, you're not really going to see a lot of this, so I'm just going to start off with just over and over, just to catch the end there. You can do a little knot if you want to. Just make that thread secure, and then just follow the folds across, and don't worry too much about the size of your stitches. We're not going in for prizes of the smallest stitch. Trust me, when you've done a few of these, you really won't mind too much if your stitches are a little bit bigger than you thought they might be or should be. So all the way along, and like I say, you can glue these if you wanted to. I know with the one that I previously made, I glued and I stitched. I started off stitching, ended up gluing. There we go. So just use a regular fabric glue or even a hot glue gun if your fingers will allow. So just pop that needle back in there. So there's our little bow made. And then what you need to do is cut yourself a little piece of ribbon. So I think about 12 inches is about right. Pop it into the middle of your puffy and you're going to make a bow. So pull that tight in the centre and do a little bow and you're good to go. And there's one. And there's another one I made earlier. So I like to think that you perhaps have 3 different sorts of fabrics for this, maybe 2 or even just 1 fabric, but it makes it really pretty if you've got 3 coordinating fabrics. So you're going to do 30 of those, put them to one side. I'll put mine over here ready for a little bit later. So the next thing you need to do is to make the big bow. Now the big bow, let me show you what that looks like. It looks like this. It's rather glamorous and it's puffy again, so we need to make that. So you're going to cut 1 big length of fabric. Again, the instructions are all there for you. You're going to do right sides together. You can finger press that if you want, and you can pin it. I mean, I'm a bit naughty, I don't pin very often. So starting off at the fold, you're starting there to come in 1/4 inch and you're going across. So you're going to make a point to your tails of your bow. So you're starting there and you're finishing, well, maybe, let's have a look. It's about 2 inches down from the top, but I'll let you be the judge of that. So again, we're just going to little locking stitch and across at an angle. Don't get too het up about the angle, just about 2 inches, like I say. And then you're going to stitch just before the halfway mark. Don't measure it. Little back stitch. And then you're going to lift your needle up, bring it across about 3 or 4 inches, and that's your turning gap. Start again with the back stitch. Come all the way along. Up to whereabouts you thought before. If you want to measure it, as I say, it's about 2 inches. And then you're going to come up to that folded corner again, and you're going to stop 1/4 inch away from the raw edge. Back stitch just to hold it nicely. So you can trim these corners off. And let's do the other side. There. You can trim it so it's nice and neat. And again, you might want to just cut your threads, make that really nice and neat. There we go. Right, so we've got our turning gap just there. Let me get my fingers in there so you can see. Got the turning gap just there. It doesn't matter that it's not halfway, truly, trust me, it's fine. They're going to turn it through and you're going to stuff it. So I've got one that I've done earlier. So I've turned it through, I've stuffed it, and it's not really full like the bows. It's not quite flat, but you can see that the middle, and hopefully you can see that the middle is quite floppy here, because that's the piece we're going to wrap around the main bow. So I want you to keep that really sort of, I want you to have some stuffing in there, but not very much, just enough to make it interesting, I suppose. And actually what I did with this, you know, we hand stitched the little puffy bows. Well, with this one I actually popped it under the machine and I machine closed it, and that's absolutely fine. You really don't see any of that once the wreath is put together. So that's our bow tails.
So a quick mention about my Gold Club. If you haven't joined already, there's no time like the present. Just pop to my website, find the link that says Gold Members Sign Up here, and then you have access to my Facebook weekly events, which is absolutely amazing. My girls love it. And of course you get the free patterns as well. So if you want more information, there is actually a video on YouTube that you can have a little look at.
So now we need to make the actual bow itself, the beautiful plush bow. And it's looks a little bit like a bow tie. That's the shapes that you've got, and the pattern is in there. So again, it's right sides together. And I won't stitch all this for you. Right sides together, and you're stitching from here all the way down this side to the bottom, and then from here all the way down this side to that bottom there. So there's no turning gap on any of these long edges. Your turning gaps, believe it or not, is here and here. Okay, so I'll bring in one that I made earlier, because this is interesting to see. In the pattern it says to bring the two short ends over. Don't forget we've stuffed this now. And again, this isn't terribly well stuffed in the centre. That's exactly how I want it to be, because we're putting layers there. If we really stuffed it a lot, it would be quite difficult to get those tails over and folded nicely. So I've stuffed it, but again, there's not much in there. And the actual sort of bows themselves are quite flat. They're not really sort of pokey-uppy. They're not really stuffed. So just bear that in mind, that that's how it needs to look, and it's not massively stuffed. So on one end, I've actually folded in the end by 1/4 inch to make that a really neat end. And what I've done there is I've actually popped the raw end of the other end inside. And I'm just going to clip this for the time being with my quilting clips. So let's pop that in there. So you can tuck it in by 1/2 inch if you want to. So we'll just get a couple of clips just to hold that in place. There we go. So that's how it looks, and you'll see that in the pattern. That's exactly the picture you'll see. And that gives you the back of the bow, and then this part is the front of the bow. And what you're going to do is bring those together. So you can glue these together, you can hand stitch that little seam together. You know, it's not going to show because we're going to put the tails right over the top. So just bring those two together, and I'll just put a clip in there for the time being so you can see what that looks like. So, and you need to sort of pull these middle pieces out so you've got that lovely bow shape. There we go, that's what it looks like there. And if you wanted to, you could put a stitch between the two to join the two together, but I'm not sure that it's necessary. So you've got your two parts, you've got your tails and you've got your bow. So now what we need to do is to actually tie them all together. Now I've cut a piece of ribbon, and it's a little bit longer than the others. Yes, it's 15 inches, so it's a little bit longer. And all you're going to do, literally, I'm going to take the clips away because it'll be far easier. All you're going to do is wrap this over the top of the front of the bow. You're bringing this round to the back as well, so it fits like that. It's just literally looped over. Can you see? It's just looped. And then all we're doing is putting a piece of ribbon underneath the tails. I'll show you when I've done it. And I'm just going to tie that and put a nice bow. There we go. Keep it nice and puffy, looks glorious. And that is your bow made. Isn't it sweet? And you could tighten this up a bit more if you wanted to, pull it tight. You can sort of mess about with it to how you think. And if you wanted to twist that leg so it goes out, just twist it before you tie it together, and you could get it so the legs point out. It's up to you. But that gives us our really big three-dimensional bow, which is amazing. So we've got all the components. So we've done with the sewing machine now. So, the other thing that we could talk about is actually the little stars, because I've provided you with a little pattern for a star. And again, I've stitched two together with a buttonhole stitch or a blanket stitch. And as you come round and you've stitched all the way around, when you get to that last point, put a little bit of stuffing inside, and that makes it a little puffy star. And that's something else that we've made to actually put onto the wreath, just to give it a bit of a pop. I didn't know whether it needed it or not, but I thought in the end that it did. So where's the wreath that we made? Here it is. Now I'm going to use my hot glue gun because we want these to be pretty permanent. Now, obviously, this is entirely up to you. If you don't like a hot glue gun, may I suggest that you use either really long pins, or, and they want to be sort of this long, or you need to get some gardening wires and make them into a loop and push them in that way to hold everything in place. But hot glue, for me, is the absolute go-to. So, I've got all my bows. Let's hope I don't drop them as I bring them across. Ooh! I've got lots. Well, I've got 30, so I'm going to move my table. Might be easier. And like I say, I've used 3 different fabrics, and they sort of complement each other, add some interest. I've got my little stars here. I did 6. And there's another little bow there. If we need any more, I've got 2 that I've already made. And I've got my glamorous bow to put on, that's last. And then I've got my foliage as well. Ooh. There's lots of bits and pieces to this. And you can please yourself whether you add more or whether you take bits away. It's going to be yours to play with, isn't it? So, oh, I've dropped a star. Thank you, glamorous assistant. So I've dropped a star. And I've put little buttons in the centre, can you see? Little buttons. So now my glue gun is good to go. I'm going to do this so I can see what I'm doing. And literally, I just want you to hold this down, mix up your colours, mix up how they sit on the wreath as well. And like I say, hold them until they're set, because they're going to be forced amongst each other. And the pressure of them is quite intense. Already that's going to come away. And just hold it there for a second. I love using hot glue. It's really, really excellent for instant bond. So let's just hold that there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on all the way around, sticking all these bows in place. You can see now that they're sticking beautifully. And I'm going to build up my wreath of bows, and then I'll come back to you when I've done. So I have glued all my puffy bows on there, but I've left a gap. Can you see at the top? I've just left a little bit of a gap there because we're going to push the big bow into that space. So we need a lot of glue to be able for that to bond to the hessian. So I'm just going to put a great big heap on there. And don't be afraid of this because you need a lot for that to hold. And if necessary, we can always go back in. So I'm just going to hold it there just for a moment and see what it looks like. Give it time to set. So we've got the foliage to put on, we've got the stars as well. They're really cute. I've got the little buttons in the centre, which I think are really nice. So hopefully that's set now, because it's under a lot of pressure, so I need to hold it down and make sure it's secure. And if it does pop up again, I'll just put a little bit more glue on until it's set. I'll tell you what a good idea is. I just had a sudden thought. We could get some pins in there just to hold it. I wouldn't leave these in here because it's a little, depends if you've got children around. So that's great, that's holding it down. And that's put the bow in place. It looks amazing. So now it's just a case of adding the stars and the foliage, and I've got little bits of hot glue everywhere. So I've got 6 stars. You might want to add, you know, an odd number. You know, some people like to have the odd numbers rather than an even number. And I'm just going to sort of dot these around as where I think they need to be. Just make sure you don't catch your tails with any of the glue. And again, I'm going to pop it there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we need a 5th one. I'm just going to pop it there. I'll pop it there. I think that'll be okay. So I'm not going to use this 6th one. I'm going to keep to the 5. And then we need to pop in the foliage. Now you could just tuck these in, but they will fall out. So we'll pop a little bit of glue on each one, and just where you think there's a little bit of a gap, and that glue will grab it and hold it in place. And these are really readily available online. Ooh, let's see. It's just finding a little place, a little gap that you might have not put a puffy bow in. And again, let's pop one just here. Oh, they look so lovely. They've got, I'm going to turn this around so I can see it. They've got little red berries on, so everything really matches well. So again, put some glue on there. I'm going to put it underneath my big bow. Maybe one down here. You don't have to put them all on. The trouble is we can get carried away, can't we? Let's pop it in there. Push it in. That's it. There we go. Let's try that again. There we go. That's better. I'm happier with that. Maybe one more up here. See, I'm going to use them all, aren't I? I said you don't have to use them all, and then I'm using them all. But I do think that it finishes it off. What's one here? I think I've got 2, so maybe one here, one here. Let's try that. And again, be generous with your glue and just pop it in there. It's amazing how quick that glue grabs. And this really is one of those lovely crafty projects that you're going to have fun with. There we go. Super. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Just pull those pine cones back a little bit, and then we can see the red berries. So apart from a few strings I need to pull off from the glue, we're done. And there we are. I'm going to take the pins out in a second. Whoa, doesn't it look amazing? I'm looking in the monitor just to see what it looks like. It looks amazing. And I tell you what else you could do. You could get some glue on there and put some glitter on there as well, just so it sparkles. But that is really strong now. With all that glue, it's really going to hold it in place. And that could be out on a door, perhaps not outside, maybe in a porch, for ages and ages and ages. It'd be fine. Pack it away again for next year. So this is a Christmas make, but actually you could make the same wreath again for spring, summer and autumn. Think about making one for Halloween in purples and oranges. Wouldn't that be absolutely awesome? So although the theme for this is Christmas, there's no reason why it can't be all year round. So there is Julienne. She's an absolute star of the show. She's a downloadable pattern on my website, lizzycurtis.com, and I hope you make loads.